So here we are, sharing secrets of the soil with me, your host, Regen Ray. Hello, soil lovers. Welcome back to another episode of Secrets of the Soil. You're hanging out with Regen Ray. And today we're going to really discover a way that when you put your thinking cap on about a byproduct of one industry, how you can create a revolutionary idea in a new industry. I'm joined today by Sherri. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ray. Great to be here.
Excellent. And whereabouts are you joining me from?
I'm in southwest Victoria in a little area called Ellerslie, so a little bit north of Warrnambool from the coast. So beautiful, beautiful spot here in southwest Victoria.
Excellent. And there may be a little bit of delay that our listeners will need to deal with this podcast, but thank you so much for joining me from your farm. And I believe it's shearing season at the moment. And the byproduct that you've created from the wool is Aussie wool pellets. And for those following along on the video, which is on YouTube, where you should be subscribing and ringing the bell and doing all those fun things. But the video version is always where you're going to see our friendly faces, our smiles. And today I'm holding up to the camera this amazing product that is wool pellets. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Sherri?
Absolutely. So Aussie wool pellets is a soil enhancement. It is a slow release nitrogen that can hold 3 times its own weight in water. And when it holds that water, it swells up so it can also aerate the soil. It's made from 100% wool. So there's no manure in there, no other additives, 100% wool. Now, because as a primarily meat producers, my family are, wool is a secondary product to that meat. And due to prices absolutely decreasing to a point where we can't cover the cost of our shearing with the sale of our wool, we decided to hold on to our wool and we had 5 years worth of wool. So I thought there's got to be something that we can do with the wool that will, be better for the environment, keep the processing here in Australia and, really decrease that carbon footprint that we have on the environment. And I did research for 2.5 years and wool pellets are actually being done around the world. And I thought, goodness me, why are we not doing it here in Australia? And so I decided to put my life savings into getting the equipment from overseas here to Australia and developed the product. And through a lot of trial and error, and probably because I have high standards of what I want my pellets to look like and resemble. And I have created the product, which, another fantastic thing about Aussie wool pellets is that when you use it on top of the soil as well, it can be used as a slug and snail deterrent because it really irritates the foot of that slug and snail. And it draws the moisture away because there's so many amazing properties of wool that we're just not harnessing anymore. People don't appreciate how amazing wool is. And, just for the listeners that may not understand wool, we've got a wide range of wool that we have in Australia. So the wool that we wear is generally from the merino sheep and it's graded on its micron, so how fine it is, the softness, and all wool is as well, actually. And so, our merino wool is fine wool, and the micron is low, whereas the wool that our sheep produce on our farm is quite strong or broad, so it's a higher micron. And obviously, the higher the micron, the lower the value it has. Because how many people do you know that have woolen carpets nowadays? We just don't utilise wool like we used to, which is really unfortunate. So, Aussie wool pellets has come to life.
Excellent. I think you really touched on a lot of positive notes there and I think this is what's happened with a lot of industries is they all existed for a reason, and they were quite sustainable, and they were quite, useful. Used to be able to get old carpet and put it down around trees as a weed control, and it would just slowly decompose. The worms would come up and eat it and all that. But now everything's turned to this plastic synthetic nylon kind of industry where it looks like wool. It doesn't feel like wool, but it doesn't decompose by wool. It doesn't do any benefits. And you've got this product that is quite natural. Where do you think along the production line, like, did it just get too hard? Did like plastic just become so easy to create everything synthetically? Or do you think that, it was just the demand that we couldn't keep up with the farming? But then here you are having 3 years worth of backlog that needed something to be done with it. So maybe it's not the supply and demand. Where do you think we kind of lost our way of keeping things as natural as possible?
I think consumer demand for a cheaper product really negatively affected the wool industry, especially the broad end of the scale. Like that's the wool that I guess I'm talking about. And not only that, but unfortunately we are a society that wants new things all the time. So, people want to change their carpet more than, back in the day that, people would have carpets that'll last them their whole life in their house, whereas now people want to change things. Even for the apparel side of things, people want to stick with trends and buy new every season. Whereas, like my dad has a jumper that my auntie knitted him when he was 20, and dad's nearly 80 now, and it's still as good as it was the day that she knitted it. And I just think, like not only that, but then obviously you've got the manufacturing side of things. Obviously in other countries there's not as high standards as what we have here in Australia, but the cost of the production, of your blankets and your carpet and all that sort of thing is obviously a lot cheaper elsewhere, unfortunately. So, yeah. I think that's why there's been a decrease in the price.
Yeah, and you're quite right. You look at some of the old original homes, steads and so forth, they've still got the original carpet. It's almost makes it part of the iconicness of the building. It's like, it's not just carpet, it's almost an artwork. It's a piece that makes a statement when you walk in. And now in that fast movement of everything, it's just, that color will do. And, 5 years later, you're renovating and now it's back to floorboards. And then, 5 years later, you have kids. So you bring it back to carpet and it's another cheap color that comes in. And I think you're right. Is that fast manufacturing, fast kind of, fast fashion, I guess, but even like fast fashion for the home and what they call, looks in for this season, where a lot of that vintage, I guess, carpets that are in mansions and castles, they're a work of art, and that's probably what makes the room so valuable.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So, your product, you mentioned you put a lot of effort into the production line. Can you take us a little bit, without revealing how to do it all from the nuts and bolts, but what's the top level? I believe you go to markets a lot as well, and you're out there promoting the product and being a big advocate. Like, what are some of the things that people are curious to know about how it's made and its sustainability footprint on the production of it as well?
Yeah, so realistically, like I tell everybody, because they all want to know how it's made, realistically, it goes through a pellet mill. Like there's not much more else I can tell people. That it goes through a pellet mill and gets squashed into little worms and pushed through and compacted. There's not much else I can expand on that. Anybody can look up how it's done. It's like I said, it's being done around the world, and I was shocked that it wasn't being done here in Australia. And I just thought, well, I'm gonna give it a crack. And here we are. Like you said, yep, I'm going to markets. I'm trying to get out there as much as possible, because something I didn't mention earlier, that the wool actually breaks down in 6 to 12 months, obviously depending on the soil makeup and what's in the soil. And it breaks down to nearly 50% carbon. So it's putting the carbon back into the soil. And to me, with all the taking away that we do, why not put it back into the soil, like where it can be utilized and really benefit, the soil, because that's the base of everything. And I personally don't have kids, but I've got niece and nephew, and I want to leave a legacy where they have a better farm than what we started with, because that's, they're the future. And we want to pass on all that amazing information that we're learning now about sustainability and regenerative farming, because, we can't keep taking. And that's why if we can put back into the soil, like I'm still obviously in very early stages in regards to broad acre scale, but ideally I would love to be able to process a farmer's oddments. So that's all the dirty bits. They're the bits that I use in creating these pellets, the bits around the edges, the belly wool, because the fleece wool, there is still a market there, and there are some amazing companies coming through that are creating amazing products with the fleece wool. So as the oddments, the side bits, I can utilize that, and we can get that back into the soil where it can be really used and benefit the plants, benefit the planet, benefit the future. And that's what I really have high hopes for the future, that this can help not only people in their backyards, but farmers on a broad acre scale. And production wise, like I produce the pellets myself. I put it through the mill, and there are times where it was very hot the other day, 41 degrees, and I was creating pellets, and look, it certainly took its toll on me, but I just know that for the future it's going to be so beneficial. And I just love the product.
Yeah, you can definitely tell you're beaming with light. Again, if you're on the video version, you could see the smiles and the excitement, and you can hear it through your voice as well. That is fantastic with the product. So you've mentioned a couple of times between farmers, like I guess gardeners or home use, and your bags are in different sizes. So maybe share a little bit about like the different size options that are available, and also like, is it more the home gardener that's going to get a benefit from this, or what does the broad scale farming look like, trying to throw these pellets out across, I don't know, maybe vineyards or other cropping in enterprises?
Yeah, so currently I have a couple of sizes that are beneficial mainly to your home gardener, small home gardener, somebody who's wanting to enhance their soil, make it a little bit better. So I've got 500-gram bags, and I've got kilo bags, and I am also just waiting on packaging for my 2.5 kilo bags. So those are my current ranges at the moment, and I am hoping to have 5 kilos and 10 kilos in the future. And obviously the more pellets you buy, the cheaper it gets. And so look, broad acre scale is something that it'll be, obviously it's all a process, and I have to start small to then expand to the big, huge hectares type farms. The pellet is small enough to go through an air seeder. So like, I'm hoping that there can be some sort of development where we can trial it through an air seeder, while somebody's putting down new pasture, because we don't want to till, but then sometimes we need to. So, in those instances, putting out using a belt spreader and then tilling, that there's options there as well. Because we really want to get it into the soil to get the maximum benefits out of it, and especially farming wise. Whereas if you're, in your home garden and you're growing veggies and you're struggling with snails, that's where you can put it on top of the soil. And so, look, I do have a long way to go, but I am already looking at upscaling equipment. but obviously that needs capital. So I'm working on that, and it's looking really positive. And your home gardeners and your farmers, everybody is just really supportive, and just happy to see that something's being done with a product here in Australia, keeping it on Australian soil and putting it back into the soil.
Yeah, love that. Woo! Jump into that. And I think that is that's there's so many elements of what you've done. And we've spoken before as we met on Instagram, and we've had a lot of chit chats in the past. And I think there's a lot of things that it's innovative. It's early, but I think that is really, really cool. And I love air seeders. If people who are listening don't really know what that is, and like with air seeding, you mean like do you mean drone technology to drop the seeds, or do you mean like the air seeder that runs at the back of the tractor, or
yeah, because we want to get it in underneath the soil. Look, the depth of where we can get it, obviously, the deeper we can get it, even better. But as long as it's surrounded by soil, it's holding that moisture in there. And like I've got people like farmers doing just mini trials up in the Wimmera region, where there's a lot of sandy soil. So to be able to hold that moisture within the soil, it's going to be great to hear how those results are, because like that's one of the biggest problems that they have, is that it just drains away. And even on our own farm, not even a kilometre from each other, I've got clay pans in an area, and then I've got gravelly sandy soil in another. So I'm doing trials in both of those areas, just to be able to say, okay, yep, look, this is aerating the clay soil, and this is holding the moisture in the sandy soil. So it's
You're
trial and error, of course.
Yeah, experimenting in your own backyard, which I love it. And I think from the home gardener, and I keep holding the product, I'm just urged to feel it and touch it and display it every time. But I think another little thing, as you were explaining that before, with the home gardener or other people using it in more small scale, I see community gardens and things like that really running, even education around this. It's that connectivity back to the farmer. It's like, here's a pellet. Here's a story of someone in Australia or in Victoria who runs the, grazing enterprise. They have to shear the sheep. There's this byproduct, not really sure what to do with it. Here's something you can do with it. And, you open the packet, it's got the aroma of, rural Australia country that was kind of built the foundation of a lot of what we take advantage of these days, and the systems that enable food to be on a shelf in a supermarket. People have lost that connection of like, where does it come from? And I think, having packaging like this and something on a shelf that you can go outside in the backyard and, do an activity with your kids and talk about the fact that this came from a sheep and this is what it looks like. And this is Sherri's farm and they're her sheeps. And, this is a real good way of like starting that story. Are you seeing that families and kids are getting excited playing around in the dirt, which we're big fans of with this product?
Oh, absolutely. Even our local Warrnambool community gardens, they run an amazing program with the young kids, and they get in there and I've given them some pellets to trial out, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. And you're exactly right. It's about, and one of my biggest passions is teaching young people, and especially people who, like you've said, have missed that connection back to agriculture and our farming ways of life, and understanding that, this is where it comes from and this is what we can do with things, and, getting their hands dirty, because that's, I feel like we're really missing that, getting that connection back to the ground and, back to us growing our own food and, thinking, look, I did that. And look, for myself, I'm enjoying growing pretty flowers, and it's as simple as that. And, my mum, she's grown the most potatoes she has ever grown in her entire life. And that's making me happy. And hearing families come back to me at markets and say, oh, look, we couldn't even get the seedlings to grow before they were annihilated by snails and slugs, to them coming back and saying to me, hey, can we get a couple more kilos because our garden is thriving? And that's within a 4-week period. And it brings me so much joy to hear that. But not only that, it's been a really great opportunity at the markets to educate people and explain to them that this is not the wool that you wear. Because I've had comments like, why would you be putting such an expensive product into fertilizer or into this product? And then I have to explain to them, well, no, actually, look, farmers of this type of wool are not getting what the farmers who have the merino wool, the wool that we wear. It's totally different prices. And I think that there's this real disconnect, people look at what is reported, and it might be the clean value that the farmers get. And it's not, as a consumer, they don't know the difference between clean and dirty price, so they just assume, right, all those big figures, that's what the farmers are getting. It's not necessarily correct. So, to be able to bring them back and explain that to them, and they're just really hooked and they love hearing about it, and they love hearing, about the farm and what we're doing. And, like I said, I'm 5th generation farmer, and, there's the 6th generation waiting to come up, and they're growing up and teaching them what we're learning. Like my brother and I, what we're spending our time learning about this sustainability and, trying to use as least chemicals as possible. And yeah, there's just so much we can learn and pass on to this generation. And, that's why I'm always putting myself out there. If people want me to come and talk to their students, their community gardens, whatever it may be, hit me up, because I'm more than happy to come and chat to people and talk about my story, talk about the background of where these pellets have come from, and explain to them how amazing the industry, the sheep and wool industry is, and, how we can mix that in and put that into the horticultural industry as well. Like, I think it'd be amazing. I know that a lot of horticulturalists have amazing soil anyway, but hey, this might be worth a trial for some of them.
Yeah, or it solves another problem like snails and slugs and bugs and other things. But yeah, I think you make a really valid point in regards to the fact that, there are people who make those statements of going, why would you waste, quote unquote, wool and put it into something like this, and then, put it into the ground and soil and like this. So, and I think the industries make it like that. Like they want wool to be seen as premium. And so they only show the top end of town prices. Yeah. They don't show the other destruction of like what happens down the line. And, there is just some wool that is not sellable, and it is, the bits that are all tangled. They almost look like dreadlocks, hanging down the bottom, and it isn't processable. And then there is all of a sudden this byproduct that, this main product that comes from basically waste. I want to touch on what farmers do with that waste product, but first, let's take a quick break. So soil lovers, stick with us. Hey there, soil lovers. Did you know that there is now a digital agency that is committed and dedicated to soil caring businesses? Maybe it's you, or maybe you know someone who's really looking after our soils and they need to reach more customers. Well, finally, there is a marketing agency dedicated to soil caring businesses. They are soilconnect.com.au. In fact, it's one of my own businesses. I saw a need in the marketplace for a company that was good at marketing and digital, but also loved soil. Well, connecting those two interests together, I got Soil Connect. So head on over to the website and see what services we can help you with in order to amplify your soil caring activities. All right, enough from me. Back to the show. Welcome back, soil lovers. You're hanging out with Regen, Ray, and Sherri. We've been geeking out about, of course, soil and wool pellets. Sherri is the creator of Aussie Wool Pellets. Sherri, we've just been talking about the fact that there is this waste product on farms about these products, and so with wool and coming to shearing, and even people who have sheep or the meat produce. What normally happens to this? Is it burnt? Is it buried? Is it like just stuck in a corner and hope for some price to go up for it? Like, what normally is the disposal method of this type of product?
At the moment, I know that there are a lot of farmers who are storing their wool on farm. And look, there is another, I guess, end of things where it's called when we crutch our sheep. So crutching sheep is where we clean up the bum area of the animal, because obviously the wool grows and we end up getting what's called dag, so the manure on the back end of the sheep and the urine stain. Those are the lowest grade types of wool. So I'm not processing that side of things, but what we do on our farm is we fill holes up that, are just naturally occurring within the ground, and we use it around trees. We find a use for it. And I know there are many other farms, especially around my district, that are using it to help prevent erosion in some creeks, and they use it around their trees. And the same thing is they use it in their, to fill holes where they may have pulled big rocks out. And farmers are an innovative bunch. They find a use for things 99 times out of 100. And whilst the fleece wool and the oddments are generally stored until, we're always hoping for a better price, because it is essentially, we are price takers. We aren't price setters. And that's generally across most situations in farming. But that's where we have to innovate and come up with ideas and be a price setter in these instances. And so whilst, there are places around the world that have been burning their wool and whatnot, but look, we can still sell it, but we're not getting the cost of our shearing back. So, there was a point where, the cost of shearing and then the return from our wool, it was even. It was, look, we were okay with that, because obviously wool was not our main product. But with the demand of shearers, and the cost of shearing rising, the cost of wages, as everybody would understand, and then the wool is slowly dropping down. So we haven't managed to, bring that back up. So that's where we've had to find something else, because we have to shear every year. It's an animal welfare issue if we don't do it. Same as the crutching. Like, we need to crutch around the back end of the animal to ensure that they don't get fly struck. And it's a management process. We, on our farm, we probably crutch a lot more than other farms, because we don't like using fly chemicals and chemical treatments on the animals. We don't want that chemical on the animal, because it's going to be bad for the environment as well, because there's obviously residues and such. So we crutch a lot more, which is just keeping their bum tidy basically, and ensuring that they don't get fly struck, because we really don't want that. So it's management, it's innovation. We've been storing, and I know a lot of other people have been storing, and we just really hope that we don't get to that stage where it is just put it in a pile and burn it.
Not good, because it's not great, but all just a waste of kind of effort, and someone spent time shearing it, and I'm sure it releases a lot of carbon back into the atmosphere as well. What do you remember when you came up with this idea? I kind of want to just go back in the past a little bit and reminisce on, where was that aha moment? Obviously, someone who's into business and entrepreneurship, I always love exploring about when you had that aha moment of going, hang on a minute, I think there's something here. Do you remember that time in your journey?
Look, I've been a wool classer now for nearly 20 years. So I've been involved in the wool industry for a long time. And just recently, in the last 2 years, I've moved into teaching. And obviously I was researching things prior to starting my teaching, and it was when I started getting back to the basics of teaching in regards to teaching the wool classing. So getting back to just wool characteristics. So that's one unit that we teach. And in that moment of thinking, okay, so that's right, wool has a water holding capacity. Why are we not utilizing that in other ways? So that sort of led me down the path of, how else can we utilize this wool for that water holding capacity? How can we use all these other characteristics of wool? And so, yeah, it was pretty much when I started back teaching these basics of wool that I was like, hang on a minute, we've got these amazing characteristics and properties of wool. We need to utilize it way better than what we already are. And so, yep, research and hang on a minute, it's being done around the world. And like, for example, something that really blew my mind was
Do tell us.
Mongolia. They process 2,500 tons of their wool into pellets. Mongolia. Like, why are we not doing it here in Australia? So,
Gosh.
it's amazing that other countries are doing it and we're not. So,
yeah, time to change that, and you're definitely on that mission. And I think it's really important. I would love to touch and go into the experience as well of, like, recently you were kind of nominated for an award and you were a receiver of it. Do you want to share a little bit about that and like the business side of your journey and some of the people you've met along there, and how this startup is kind of unfolding?
Yeah, so I was part of a program. Our local area, the local councils have gotten together, and part of the small business Victoria group. There's the group of councils have made this. I don't know how to explain it. It's called the Ideas Place, and it's where they get small business people with ideas to come together and learn about how to run a business, how to start a business, all the ins and outs. So for 12 weeks, myself and I think it was another 10, 12 people, we went to classes every week and learned all these amazing elements about business and what we should know and how to start a business. And it was so beneficial. So I was so grateful that I was able to get a place in that program. And then from there, we had another 4 weeks of one-on-one mentoring with our trainer. And at the end of that mentoring, which was aimed at pitching our idea to a panel of judges where we could have the opportunity to win $10,000. And so think Shark Tank, basically. And we had 5 minutes. And let me tell you, 5 minutes is not a long time to try and explain to people your business and why you think your business is going to be successful. And it was very nerve-wracking. There was a lot of people there, and of course, all the supporting people that we all had there. And because we had become such a tight-knit group, it was amazing just for the networking, to know all these new smart people in with such vast different ideas. And I pitched my idea to the judges, and the 3 judges were local business owners from the local councils. And I was lucky enough to come away as the winner of this Shark Tank. And it's really been a turning point in my business, because it really gave it the boost I needed and the business needed to really get it out there. Because I can tell you now, if I hadn't have taken the opportunity, taken the jump and just done it, I would still be in the planning phases now. I know that. And look, I'm still really new to all this business side of things and everything, but things aren't going to be perfect all the time. And it doesn't need to be perfect to just get out there and give it a go. Because look, even if down the road this all fails, I know I've tried my best and I've given it my all. And that's I think one of the biggest things is just give it a crack, like, and keep trying and keep trying. Like, there's going to be pushbacks, there's going to be failures, but that doesn't mean that the idea or the business is a failure. It just means that particular point, that route didn't work. So, okay, just pivot a little. And it's constant pivoting and it's okay. You're learning every day. And, I'm coming across so many amazing people at the markets, other business owners who are willing to pass across their little bit of information. And, I'm able to even now come across other little small businesses that are up and coming and just, oh, have you tried this, or have you done this, or have you thought about this? And they're like, oh, no, I haven't. I was like, oh, well. And they're like, oh, my goodness, I would never have thought of that. And I'm like, I was exactly the same. So it's just, look, one foot in front of the other. And, I'm just so grateful for the opportunity of that, winning that award and being able to pitch my idea. And I do, like, because I have such a passion for this, the wool industry and for my pellets, and I just love them and know how good they are for the environment.
Love that. And the reason why I asked you to share about that is because I think there are a lot of people, in their world, just sitting on an idea and, like what you said, stuck in that planning phase. And so, the program that you explained is very, like, it rings a bell to me of like what we would call incubators or accelerator programs, where you go in there like an incubator for chicken eggs. You kind of go in there and you sit in a warm, fuzzy environment with lots of other people. And that networking is really important, that, being around other like-minded people that are going through similar feelings. And then you realize, oh, hang on, I'm not that lone person dealing with this on my own. There are other people like me. And I know that when I've been in rooms with incubators and accelerators, and then pitching the idea at the end and having that kind of nervous moment of like imposter syndrome kicking in, and am I good enough? And why would they pick me and my idea? And then all of a sudden you win it. And then there's people who are placed, second, third, and runners up and, other places. But it gives you the validation, and it gives you that ability to fast track an idea and do the mind maps you probably would never, get around to doing, sharing the idea to your peers, which you would normally not get practice to do because you're always kind of in your own head as an entrepreneur and a business owner. So I think, anyone who's listening to the podcast, go down the rabbit hole of exploring what incubator programs are and, accelerated groups. And there are like women incubator programs that are supported for more like, women in business. And then there's others that are more like your Shark Tank, where like they're going to rip your numbers to shred and like see if you really got, the guts for 3% of, and $1 million. So, there's a program out there for everyone. And there's a lot around farmers and ag tech. And, it's surprising how many incubators and accelerator programs there are for the farming world. And so, yeah, plant that seed for the listeners to go out there and just even hear from your story, how you were before and how many, positive outcomes came from that. And you received some cash injection that enabled you to put on some staff or do some marketing and, grow your digital assets and your fingerprint. So that way that gives, keeps on giving over and over and over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just, even I always say to people, even if you don't think that you're quite at that stage, just still try, like, because you've got nothing to lose. If you're always prepared for, okay, well, no, sorry, you're not suitable, well, try again next time, because you never know. Like, I can tell you now, never in a million years did I think, even 12 months ago that I would be sitting here talking to you, Ray, and telling people my story. And it's still just the beginning, and I'm learning every day. And it's just, just take that leap. You've got nothing to lose. Just try.
Excellent. I love that. Let's bring it back to soil. Can you share a soil tip or idea or something you discovered on your soil journey that kind of just blew your mind, where you're like, wow, I never knew that about soil?
Look, I think, okay, so I'm not sure if you've heard of David Hardwick, but he was really my wow moment. And I was lucky enough to go to one of his sessions about the holistics of soil health. And the way that he described the soil being like a pub, you know, if everything is going well, it's all harmonious, it's all calm, it's, you know, everyone's having a good time. But if you get a group of bikies come in that front bar, it's going to disrupt everything. So, you know, that could be high levels of salinity in your soil. That could be compaction in your soil. Could be a multitude of things. And the same thing goes with if the bistro is only serving 2-minute noodles, then, you know, your plants are not going to be wanting to eat just 2-minute noodles all the time. They want something luscious and you know, really nutrient rich. And the same goes for us at the pub. We don't want just 2-minute noodles at the pub. We want, you know, options and you know, all these different things that we should have in a pub. But if they're not there, then, you know, it's not going to be a healthy or happy place. And the same goes with that soil. Like we want the soil to be happy and thriving and just full of all these amazing nutrients that occur naturally and that we can get through natural means. We don't need the chemicals. So from that moment of being in his session, it was just like, wow, we have all these amazing attributes of our soil, and just with a few little tweaks, we can make it a happy pub.
I love the pub analogy, and I'm going to steal it because I think it's more relatable. I always used to say that like the soil's like the stock exchange, and I think that's a little bit not as fun because like I was just thinking that like imagine you're at a pub and it runs out of beer. Oh, there might be some angry people, and that's exactly what we do to soils is we let a particular mineral or trace element or organic matter completely run out, and then the rest of the microbes who are the pub, you know, buyers of beer are angry, and so they ship out and die and go to another pub down the road, and then the pub goes out of business. So
yeah,
I love the pub analogy, and I will be using that along my journey.
Yep, that's David, not me.
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks, David, for that. And always, you know, that's the great thing is, you know, we storytell these things, and everyone gets to pick up. And I'm sure there will be soil lovers listening to the podcast who will take that pub analogy as well. So that is awesome. So, Sherri, are you ready to become the voice of the soil?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Great. So you are the soil now, and you've embodied its energy, and you are its mouthpiece. So to the soil lovers that are listening, as the soil, what would you say to them?
Please give back to me. I know that I want to give and give and give, but please give back to me too, because I can help you guys be healthier, happier. Dig your fingers in, get your fingernails dirty, but give back, because we need this cycle to work. We need that love and that connection to all work, and so everybody can be happy. And no matter what we're doing, just give and take, make it fair, make everybody happy.
Love that. And as you were saying that, you know, give back, I was thinking, you know, like, you know, put a woolen blanket on your soil, you know, tuck your soil into bed with the Aussie woolen pallets. So like just that nice warm and fuzzy kind of feeling. I think that's exactly what the soil is screaming for at the moment. Probably not just saying is like to give back to me, like feed me back all that stuff that you took, and, you know, give me back all the moisture and the air that you compacted and squeezed out of me, and things like that. So I think that's a really great statement to be as the voice of the soil. So thank you so much, Sherri, for being the voice of the soil and coming along today and sharing with all the soil lovers your most passionate journey around the Aussie wool industry, and then creating these amazing pallets that are helping bridge the gap to consumers and growers and everyone about how wool can play such a big part in the soil, you know, regeneration movement.
Thank you so much for having me and just letting me talk about my love for the wool industry and getting the wool back into the soil where it can be utilised. So thanks, Ray.
No worries. And so how can people grab their hands on these woolen pellets to then get their hands dirty and put it into their soils?
Absolutely. So people can go to my website, so aussiewoolpellets.com.au, and find the shop on there and purchase the pellets, and I can send them anywhere in Australia. And if not there, if you're in local Southwest Victoria, I'm at local markets. People can follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and all my updates will be on there. And I'm constantly trying to put new information out there for people around the wool pellets and soil. So any questions, also please send me an email, send me a message on the socials. I'm more than happy to hear from anybody who wants to chat about soil, about wool pellets. Give us a yell.
Love that. Thank you so much for being a great soil lover. And on Instagram is where we connected, and you've made group chats and introduced people together. And it's been great hanging around your energy and getting to know your story and expanding on that today. So thank you so much for coming along. And soil lovers, all the links that Sherri mentioned will be, of course, around the video if you're watching on YouTube, or on the podcast show notes and around wherever this video or audio is being listened to. So on that note, thank you so much again, Sherri, for coming along. You enjoy the rest of your day, and please keep us up to date how your journey around the pellets is progressing, and can't wait to see it on the shelves around the country.
Thank you. Will do.
Excellent. Soil lovers, until next time, make sure that you're getting outside, getting your hands dirty, and always digging deeper and deeper into our wonderful world of soil. And if your soil's a bit cold, go put some woolen blankets on it with the Aussie Woolly Pellets. Until next time, I'm Regen Ray. I'll see you then. Well, soil lovers, that's enough secrets for one episode. I really hope that you enjoyed all the secrets shared during this conversation. But hey, let's not keep it a secret. Please share this podcast around and make sure that you like it and leave us a review, because that really helps spread the secrets of the soil. Until next time, remember, get outside, get your hands dirty, and keep digging deeper into your soils.